hatred, a loathing, causing skin to crawl, so to speak. Andrew Tyrrell, we hate you, we loathe you. You have no value in our minds, in our hearts, in our souls, and in our eyes. Many people will go through life never, ever being placed into a category, into a situation that they are hated and loathed. In 1989, I had a mental breakdown. I was consequently taken to Nile Hospital and locked up for a number of months. How long exactly, I do not know. Because now it is 2017 and I've been living with the consequences of being labelled schizophrenia. And so, to give you an understanding, I was forced to endure medication every day. The medication was so powerful, all I wanted to do was sleep, nothing else. I had no energy, I had no motivation, I had no will. My life had become a living existence in a semi-comatose state of mind. If I wanted to go for a walk in the grounds, I'd have to have two strong male nurses to give me security. It wasn't my desire. This was the desire of the psychiatrists who took it upon themselves to judge me as being dangerous. But up to that point, I've never been dangerous. And since then, I have never been dangerous. And so, having to take the medication without any will of saying no, it's like being induced into a coma than being raped. You can't say no because you have no will or any understanding of what's going on. And I remember my brother came to see me with his daughter. This is back in 89. And that was the first and last time I ever said anything for my daughter, because my brother, Stephen Tyrrell, diagnosed me as a paranoid schizophrenic. Now, I was diagnosed schizophrenia. So he, in a sense, accepted the fact that in his own reality, that whatever happened to me, whatever abuse I received, not only from the family, my birth family, but from other people, in his eyes, in his mind, it's my fault. I caused it because he's diagnosed me as a paranoid schizophrenic. So whatever abuse I've been receiving since being diagnosed with this illness, he has told my mother, convinced my mother, manipulated my mother into believing that it's part of my imagination. And because my mother has suffered from agoraphobia since 1973, and she's been, in a sense, imprisoned in her own reality, although she knows, and she's not mad or anything, just that being agoraphobic, you're locked in 24/7. The only time you'll get a chance to get information concerning the outside world is through TV or through visitations of my family. So I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be loathed. And even to this day, my brother, Stephen Tyrrell, my brother, David Tyrrell, his wife, Sue, and Stephen, his wife, Diane, have been abusing me since 1989. Sue married David because she has been chasing him for 30 years. I mean, ask yourself the question, why would anybody chase someone for 30 years? And so, I remember, this is an example of how she, my sister-in-law, views me. I found out one day, before I go any further, I changed my name by default because I had a very unpleasant childhood. So I phoned up my brother David to talk to him about a topic. And she said, "Who is this?" I said, "It's me, Isaac." She put the phone down. She put the phone down, and that's it. That's her reaction. So straight away, that is an illustration of her hatred and loathing for me, because she would never accept the fact that I have a right. I have rights. I've been given this diagnosis, this label, as someone not to be trusted. I'm the Hannibal Lecter of my own family, and you may think this is outrageous, going too far. But I've had it, and I've had this hatred shoved on the end of a pointed stick and shoved in my eye 24/7. I remember one occasion, I went on holiday with my brother. First time ever and last time ever. It was an experience not to be forgotten. Being having these medication, you tend to put on weight. You tend to gorge yourself on food. Why? You have nothing to do. And so you manipulate yourself into believing that if you eat food, it'll get rid of the depression. But when you put on weight, you get more depressed and more stressed because you're finding it hard to move around, exert yourself. So you continue to put on weight because it's a no-win situation. And my brother had organised the holiday because he's the kind of person who must take control. In his eyes, he is always right. I am always wrong. I cannot be right in his eyes, that's how I must be wrong. Why? Because I have this paranoid schizophrenia diagnosis by my own brother. So it's obvious and logical to accept the fact that if I ever come up in conversation with him and his friends, he would tell his friends, "Oh, I have a brother who is a paranoid schizophrenic." But I'm not a paranoid schizophrenic. I've just got this diagnosis which has caused me to be a leper, to be treated like a leper by my own family. And so when you're on all this medication, which is physically and emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually demoralizing, you're continuously feeling agitated, you feel nausea 24/7 because of the side effects from the medication. You want to sleep all the time, but you don't want to sleep all the time. You want to have the motivation to change your life, to live a decent life, but you can't because you're controlled by the medication. And every 3 months I'd get this injection up my rear end, and I'd become a zombie again in a comatose semi-existence. So my brother organised the holiday, and he frog marched me everywhere. I'd gone from 15 stone to 25 stone, and he made sure we went on holiday in very hilly places. So I had to walk up these long hills and then down the other side. I was on all this medication, but that was irrelevant. Because the way you see it, if he can manage it, so can I. But my brother taught physical education. He has been, put it this way, he's not disabled. He has not had one, no, he had, I believe, before he left and stopped teaching, he had probably 1 day off from illness for the entire of time he was teaching. And starting at 16 when he started from there. And so, in his opinion, if he can do it, so can I. But that's how he views me. So, it was a holiday I didn't like. And things got worse in the year 2000. I was living on my own, and life was becoming very depressive. I was becoming suicidal because I didn't know anybody. And I couldn't cope. And at this time, I have taken myself off the medication. I woke up one Friday morning and I looked at myself and I thought, do I want to continue through life in a state of zombie? And I said to myself, no. So I took myself off the medication. I told my social worker and he hit the roof. The first thing my social worker did, he tried to get me sectioned in a mental ward. But it didn't work. And so I've been managing ever since off the medication. But understand this. When you're on a medication 24/7, 7 days a week, and you take yourself off the medication, you get all the side effects. I remember one time when I was in Department of Psychiatry, this was in Southampton, they placed me on medication, and although this medication at the time was deemed suitable, it's no longer in existence at the moment, but when they put it on me, or I was forced to take it, I became addicted immediately. And when we had medication rounds, and when we had the medication to be taken at a certain time, if they had no Antivan in the trolley for me, I'd have to wait. And I'd climb up the wall. That's what happens when people who are employed to hand out medication have no empathy. They've never been in the situation themselves, so they will tell themselves, oh, I can cope, so why can't you cope? Back to my brother again. And so when I eventually took myself off the medication, did life get better? In perspective, eyes of my family, I was, and I still am, Hannibal Lecter. And it wasn't until I was diagnosed, and of course, when you find out that Andrew, who was known at the time, had stopped taking his medication, you do research. You probably ask your doctor, dear doctor, I have my cousin has a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia because my brother Stephen has told everybody I'm a paranoid schizophrenic, but I'm not. I'm a schizophrenic. You understand where I'm coming from? And so she would ask the doctor, my cousin is a paranoid schizophrenic who's not taking medication. How should I, what should I expect? I'll let you, the listener, listen to this. Already they've diagnosed me as Hannibal Lecter. So whatever the doctor told her, she in turn told her husband, her parents, her children, her relatives. So you can see where the failings of these individual family members are piling on the crap, on the wood, so to speak, the kindling, the burn me at the stake, because obviously are not suitable to be in existence. In a later audio, I'll explain how I was, I am, I am, and still am hated. So I will tell the story of Marilyn Tyrrell, my sister-in-law, as my brother, her husband died of leukemia in 1973, and my mother developed agoraphobia ever since. But the focus on the crap I get from Stephen and his wife, David and his wife, the crap I get from his daughter. I mean, quite simply is the only time I would see his daughter, my niece, would probably be once every 5 years. But that will come out in another story, another audio, and you can see how not only was I abused and still am abused, but my elderly mother was abused. I mean, if you don't like someone, I'll give an example. If I don't like someone, I will tell them. I won't associate and be friendly with them to give the impression that I still like them or I do like being around them. I will tell the person. I'm the kind of person to call a spade a spade. If I think you're a turd, I will tell you you're a turd and I will stop associating with you. But my brother Stephen would rather be friends with me, which would then give him a chance to judge me, insult me, exact his own standards upon me that he wants me to, or he expects me to follow, but he's not prepared to follow the standards he puts upon me himself. You understand? Because at the moment my brother's an actor. To his friends, he's probably come across as a real nice guy. So, but to me, in relation to dealing with me, he's the complete opposite. So at the end of the day is, you could quite easily say he's more of a schizophrenic than what I am. Because with his friends, he's a nice guy. With me, he is vile and disgusting the way he judges me. So he is more like the personality disorder individual. And so I've dealt with his shit since 1989, where on the 15th of May, I remember very clearly, I was working on a building site in Romsey, working on a sports centre. This is it was a Thursday, I believe at the time, but I could be wrong. I believe it was the 5th or the 15th of May 1989. My father turned up. I don't know why, but I later found out. And the next day I was taken to Knoll Hospital and locked up for a number of months. Well, I'm not sure whether it was years or not, because it's very hazy and I haven't really gone into investigating. That was the time, so that's when life became non-existent. That's when my family decided to take it upon themselves to judge me as being unworthy. To be hated by your brothers, to be hated by your relatives, to be hated and abused by your mother, Because when a child does not get the love from those he or she expects, he looks somewhere else. I didn't really go down that avenue because, quite simply, I had my own battle to deal with, which is mainly spiritual, but that can always come out at a later date. But to get down to the nitty gritty, they tossed me away. They threw me out with the rubbish. I had no longer any value. I was like a piece of turd flushing away in the toilet. So you don't have to be disabled to receive hatred from your family members. Hatred has no shape, it has no figure, it has no face. It's a faceless creation projected upon you by these individuals like Stephen Tyrrell and my mother and my family. So this is what I have to deal with. But it continues because every time I'm judged by my family, every time I'm insulted by my family, because I've not been given the right to sit down with these individuals and discuss and clarify exactly what they're assuming, which is incorrect, it builds up. So when someone says to me, I don't want you communicating with my children ever again, I'm not being given the opportunity to address the situation. So that's a massive weight placed onto my psychological shoulders. And it continues. Because when your nephews and niece are told not to associate with you, it's soul destroying. So, Andrew Tyrrell, you are hated, you are loathed. You are what we find on the bottom of our shoe when we walk across the park late at night. So I've experienced this hatred since 1989. And not only do I get it from my family, but outsiders as well. I am SV Dagan. I hope you've enjoyed my audio. This is part 1. Other parts will come later.